Welcome to NC Political Tea, the show where North Carolina's political scene gets served piping hot, grassroots style. We're here to shake up the status quo with unapologetically conservative takes and a whole lot of Southern charm. From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel State. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
Hello, hello.
Hello. This is my favorite time of year, Sloan. It's like better than Christmas when you get to see all these candidates and you spend a lot of time really helping your fellow North Carolinians try to keep us from becoming Virginia.
Yeah, most definitely. Or California, because that's where we are. Well, look, primaries are important. We're in the primary season in a red state or reddish state. I think primaries are more important than the general, because we have to build a firewall here in the event that, heaven forbid, we lose power at the federal level. And if we've got weak, milquetoast Republicans in office, we have no firewall to protect us from the feds. We are done.
Well, you know, my favorite saying is it all starts local, and it really starts before you even get to the House in North Carolina or the Senate. You have to have a good district attorney, a great sheriff. I didn't have one of those, but I'm going to get one. And you must have a good county commissioner set and judges. Those are the preeminent things you must have to insulate yourself. We learned that during COVID.
Yeah, we learned that. We've learned that a lot, actually. We've learned that a lot. And so if you don't have very strong people in the supermajority, which they often tout, right? We hear Republicans tout, well, we have the supermajority. Well, if we're not getting anything done or we're acting like Democrats, it does us no good whatsoever, which is why we're bringing on 3 primary candidates tonight, which I'm very excited about. So full disclosure, Sherry Lynn Womack's a good friend of ours out in the Lee County area, and she's facing off with Charles Taylor. And we've got Sherry Lynn right here, and we're going to just talk it up a little bit. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. Drying up. Been out to polls all day.
So you guys had Sunday polls today?
Yes, ma'am. From 1 to 4 o'clock. And
Wow.
It decided to rain the entire time. But that's okay. It was good.
That's good. I'm glad you were there, Sherry Lynn. Hey, why don't you give people your background real fast?
Well, real quick background is very simple. I'm a Christian conservative combat veteran. I served in the military for 33 years. I deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and then I came back home and served the state for Social Services Commissioner for 4 years. And then I got on the Board of Education. Woo, that was a big one there for 10 years. And now I chair the Board of Education. And I got involved in politics because it was very hard for me to come back home after you spend 33 years of your life fighting for these freedoms and then to watch them just be taken away. So now why do I run for office? Is, I spent 33 years fighting for those freedoms. And now I want to defend those freedoms at the House, at the State House. Because I believe a woman's place is in the House, the Senate, anywhere else the good Lord sends her.
The one thing I love,
I get a lot of flack about that.
You always told me that women have balls too. We just have them higher.
Bigger and higher.
That's right.
Bigger and higher.
Absolutely.
And that came from an old commander. He was just like, ma'am, you just don't have the balls for this mission. And that was my reply. Sir, God gave me balls. He made them bigger and he made them higher. But I think God makes us all different for a reason. Now, I can say that very clearly because of my experience in the military as well. Because when I went out on deployments, like with the special forces teams and stuff, I went attached to them. And there were certain areas that men could not go in, that only women could go in. So I think we're all made different for a reason, and I love that. I love that. And we all have different personalities. I know people trying to change me, especially running in the state position. Oh, you got to cut your hair. You're too old to have long hair, or do this different way you dress or do that. I wore combat boots for 33 years, so I'm going to wear what I feel comfortable wearing. And quite frankly, most of it I either got to make or sew because I'm 4'8". But don't let that fool you. I might be small, but I think I can stand my ground. Why are you
Well,
laughing at me? You don't.
I'm laughing
you
because you're a powerhouse at 4'8".
well, the one thing that you and I have worked on, because I've worked in education for years and years, and the thing we've coalesced on, and I'll put up a couple of pictures to kind of upset you. Well, first of all, we're learning about this this guy from the SBI, and it's what we hear every week, right? He's a teacher. He is in Carrboro, lives in Carrboro, Chatham County teacher, was caught distributing porn to students. But you and I have worked on this guy. Braxton is the last name, who was a pervasive pedophile. And you and I both worked to make sure that he didn't have a freaking teaching license, Margot, after he had been arrested, turned his teacher's license in. Margot and I have a couple questions about the state of school security, because we're reading every week there are these pedos in our classrooms.
Yeah. Well, that is correct, and y'all did put that information out there. But there's a lot of things that is a lot of people do not realize when something like this happens. Because I served on that board, and our board decided to do an internal investigation. That doesn't always happen. Why? Because they want you to have something called deniable plausibility. We didn't care. Our board just wanted to know what happened, how it
This is
happened, and how it would not happen again.
this is
And
for this
so,
case, right?
and
Braxton.
for that particular case, it's not Braxton is not his name, but that's okay.
Okay.
So the main thing is the process on how this happens. So let's say you get someone in your school system, and then you end up having to you need them to be gone, even if they admit to a crime. No matter what they do, it's the legal system with so much sporadic red tape that you've got to go through. Like, for instance, they can resign or you can fire them for cause. You cannot just fire them for cause immediately because it's a long process. Well, schools want them off the books as soon as possible. So what they do is they allow them to resign. Now, here's where your board can make a difference. Your board can actually talk to your attorney. The attorney works for the board, and tell that attorney that anytime something like this were to happen in the future, when you accept their resignation, you are requesting that they give up their teacher's license. Because if they don't do it, what happens to it? It gets the DPI and it just stays there. And they still got that license and they can actually travel. And now let's go into some other things other than just that license part. What can they do in the local community? For instance, we did that internal investigation. Immediately, our superintendent jumped all over it. There was training for teachers. They knew what to look for. They knew what little things that, sometimes people may not even notice. If a child goes in a room talking to a teacher and comes back out and they got an expensive iPhone, or if there's black on the windows, I'm not saying none of this happened. I'm just saying there's things that people can look for. And quite frankly, most parents and most teachers, because teachers have a rougher job than anybody can possibly imagine, they can tell when something's wrong. If you've got that gut instinct, by golly, act on it. And we do have laws, where people realize that they must report a crime when they see it. But when they have these kind of instincts, and that lets them look for things that sometimes parents, teachers, and even the students need to know what grooming behavior is. So we had all these grooming classes. They came in. I was very proud of Lee County and the way we did that and how we handled it, because it was a rough case and it went on for a while, and it's still in the court system. There's not a whole lot I can talk about, but I can tell you how to prevent it and what to do. And the one thing to do is don't be worried about what's going to happen or what they're going to find. Call them in, let them find. Sunshine is the best disinfectant there is. And how do you stop this? And, I don't want to take over your show or anything, but one thing, they do names or they do all these things when they try to look for people who's on the registry list. Why are they not doing fingerprints? People change their name all the time.
And why is it that in North Carolina, they actually will let people off the registry? It's not forever.
See, I don't quite understand that concept, because it's kind of like someone who has a drug addiction or something like that. They don't necessarily change. And what we're finding, or what I have seen within our school systems, a majority of the times, at least recently, the things that we're seeing that kind of fall through the crack, it's not just traditional public schools. It's private schools, it's Christian schools, it's charter schools, it's any type of school, because predators go in that direction. And you know that because they
Yeah.
know it's like a playground to them, But I'm finding out more and more that more parents are paying attention. And that is amazing because the parents are so involved now. I was glad, I'm sorry to say it this way, but it's a good thing in a way, some of the things that happened during COVID. You got more parental involvement than you've ever had. But we also have, and I can't go without saying this, we actually have really good teachers. We actually have our public schools. I can only tell you, I only got 17 schools here, but we have good public schools. We have people who actually report things. They will call and say, this seems suspicious. Now, why did that happen? Because that one case with Andrew Allen that you just showed earlier, with that one particular case, our superintendent.
Middle name. Braxton's the middle name. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's Allen. The last name is Allen. Yeah.
Okay. So it's Andrew Allen. And so with me, when we saw that case and we saw how it developed, I got to see how they did their grooming habits. And there's things that people don't even talk about because it's hard to do because you got young kids in your school. They think the teacher's authority. They got to do what they're due. And then I also see the flip side of it where the media gets out there. All schools are bad. I'm sorry, things like, like they're all indoctrination centers, but they're not all indoctrination centers. We've got great teachers out there and they deserve to be paid well, but I also believe in accountability. Our schools did a performance audit saving millions of dollars. We found an employee that wasn't even showing up to work for 3 years that was still getting paid. We found positions where you could take one person and they could actually do 3 people's job. And so what does that do? That reduces your staffing in the school system. But it still doesn't mean that we should not fund appropriately our staffs, our teachers, and the public schools, because you look, 70 to 80% of our children still go to traditional schools. And why is that important to you, the non-taxpayer? Is because those would be the products of our society. Our schools do not have all these, like issues you got with the book. Do you know, Margot, today, I'm not kidding, if you called me and said, hey, I know a girl in Lee County and her mom and daddy said there's a bad book in your school. You know what I got to do? I pick up my phone. I call my superintendent. My superintendent knows exactly where that book's at, from the library down. Even if someone checked it out, it can be pulled and it can be checked. That has to do with leadership at the local level. And it
And
needs to be at the
teaming.
local level.
And good teaming. That means that you have good skills at teaming with people. That's a high trust factor. We really appreciate that. I know there are other things that are you specifically want to go to the House to address. If you were to have some committees that you want to be on, I'd like to know what those are. And then what are your top 3 issues that you want to address while you're in the House?
Yeah, for me, probably one of the major issues would be education. If you think about it, that's one of our largest employers we got throughout the state. And so there's a formula that they use. It's a very complex formula. It's not something that's transparent. And then even if we have children that have special needs, English as a second language, doesn't matter what it is, we have so many unfunded mandates. And some of them are ridiculous. I want to take common sense to the House. I know that's going to be a hard thing to do, but common sense to the House and to be able to look at it and see how it's done. I'm not saying that, the schools are being cheated and that money's going to fix everything. But a hardworking teacher, when I leave my schools and I have to go down here, I get out of class or I do something else and I leave one of the schools, I'll go to an event, even on a weekend. I'll find one of my teachers working at a gas station, and then I went to drop something off at UPS. She's working at UPS. I know for a fact, I have seen them buying supplies. This is a problem in transparency and accountability.
I think
Every
it
teacher's
also,
not bad. We don't have all indoctrinated schools, and that's why I dislike that thing at all, because I think and again, just so it's very clear, I'm all about parents having choices.
yeah, I also
But
think
public schools are.
you're highlighting workforce housing, because a teacher cannot stay in a community and afford housing without a second job or a third job. So it's
No.
not just that they're good teachers and they have to work extra jobs. They're doing that not because they can't live in the community because it's not affordable.
That's right. And how about a little bit of respect? I don't mean this to sound horrible, but I remember when I was a little girl, which of course I'm still 4'8", so I guess that still makes me a little girl. But we never disrespected our teachers the way that things are happening today. I mean, if I got in trouble at school, I kid you not, my parents would probably know by the time I got home, and
I
you'd
know
be in
mine
trouble
would.
then. And so now they just do whatever they want to do. We actually have policies. Our students don't come to school in pajamas. You would be surprised how many high schools allow students to come to school in
Yeah, I had
pajamas.
a home policy like that. You're not leaving my house in pajamas.
Yeah, I mean, I have to
That's a
imagine
good one.
my kids would do it if they were allowed to. Definitely. But we need someone like you. John Torbett is in the house. He's one of the great reformers up there. There are a couple more. Neil Jackson will be another one. But we
Oh
need
yeah,
strong voices up
I
there
like Neil Jackson.
that prioritize education. And I think that you would be a perfect complement to add to it. You're quite frankly replacing an incumbent who's not seeking office again, who's kind of a do nothing guy. So we need an active, a do something gal in place of that.
Well, actually, I want to be there. Being there would be a big issue. The person that I'm replacing, and I have a lot of respect for him, but he's actually only showed up 40% of the time.
Wow.
And so
What's trying to turn
that
the page?
and that's a big, I'm not saying it's because of health or whatever's going wrong, but there's a time, even in the military, when to step down. When you're no longer effective. Like I got a metal rod in my neck. I knew it was going to be hard for me to do emergency medicine, CPR, carrying people across the neck. But guess what? That just means God leads me in another direction. Doesn't mean I stop. It means I still get out of bed every day, put my boots on the ground and see what I'm going to do next. But you really cannot go where you miss that many votes. That's why it's called the House of Representatives. You represent the people, and they deserve for you to be there to represent them. So
Absolutely.
that's also one thing. Another thing that I'm kind of passionate about as well too is also voter integrity, and that is a bipartisan issue. That I can assure you, that is a bipartisan issue. We should all be able to have faith in our government and how it works, including anything that has to do with voting. It's not restricting voting. It's just every legal vote should count. And that takes transparency as well. And supporting our military. I spent 33 years of active duty in the military. North Carolina is the perfect place, I feel like, for retirees to be. You can go to the mountains, you can go to the beach. So what are we doing to sustain our military? Because I think they're smart. Military people know a lot of things, and they get out of the military, they should be able to have, and not just them, but their spouses as well. It is very difficult for a military spouse when they're traveling, they're PCS, and they're moving around. It's really hard for them to have a job and be in North Carolina. We need to make North Carolina the place where every soldier wants to be. And we do have, all the military bases we got around here, not just the Army. We got Pope Airfield Base, got military bases, things like that. North Carolina can do much better in maintaining the military that we have that retires. So that's a good thing too. So those would be some key issues. And I know I talk a lot about education, but I think accountability and transparency is very good, and having parental involvement. And one of the biggest issues is having strong teachers in there. We got some great ones in Lee County, but y'all not going to get them in other counties. We're going to keep them if we can.
Well,
You
Sherry
know.
Lynn, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate everything you said. It's very hard to find someone that understands the spouses or the military spouses side of it when they move, and especially when they retire. Some spouses go with their husbands. He went with you because he's from Arkansas and you're from North Carolina. But sometimes it's reverse. And if you're not from a state, to move there and try to acclimate and get a job and fit in, that's a big deal. And kids too, for that matter.
Yes, and then that's one of the things I brought up with counter flexibility. See, I believe in local control. The taxes, everybody's going to say the taxes are too high. They're going to say we need to decrease regulations. I got that. But local control is a big deal. What is good for my district may not be good for someone else's district. When we talk about counter flexibility in our schools, and I know that was a big issue as well, what is good for Lee County may not be what is best for somebody out on the coast somewhere.
I thought that was the dumbest thing they did with that calendar sponsorship. And we learned how dumb it was because of the snowstorm.
Yes. And now where do we sit now with the snow? Because we did what we felt like was the best thing for our students. And so now we're in a good position now, even with the snow and the ice and all that stuff. Why anybody should feel like a child should be taking the test after Christmas is beyond me. but I also brought up other issues in reference to counter flexibility. Military, for instance. Most people think military come back. The number one time they commit suicide is probably, I don't know, they think it is post-deployment. They think it's Christmas because it's a holiday, but it's not. It's during the summer. What happens during the summer is something called a PCS move. And so they're moving around and they got to take all their kids everywhere, and every one of them's got a different schedule. And then if you're in a high school class, you can't go to college, whatever. But local control, I think that should also be at the state level in reference to everything. Is local control, break it down. Gotcha.
Yep. Listen, we would love to have you back on. If you have some time in this campaign, we have till March 3rd. Yeah. Find another 10 minutes down the road. But we really wanted people to know, where are you running? What are you running for? And how can they vote for you?
Oh, absolutely. If you live in Lee County, North Carolina, if you're in Cameron, if you're in Carthage, you're in Bass, Little River, those areas, you can vote for me. And I would love to have you vote and your support. And you can find out more about me by going to my website. I think you linked that up there earlier. It's Sherry Womack for NC. It's real easy to find online, and I'll be more than glad to answer anybody's questions. They can call me on my cell phone, 919-770-0351. I'm an open book.
That. Well, thank you, Sherry Lynn. We look forward to seeing you again, and thanks for being our first guest on the night.
Bye,
absolutely. Sherry Lynn. Thank you. All right, bye.
All right, so House races are really important. She's a fireball. I mean, she's done so much that I imagine it's hard for her to drill down, and so much needs to be done.
Well, I just appreciate her stance on education. I think that that's a bipartisan issue, and it sounds like, if she got in there, that would be one of her number one concerns, and we need that.
Yeah. Oh, very definitely. We've been covering that for years now. So we've been giving out a lot of sample ballots. A lot of you, I'm telling you, by the way, please be patient with us because I'm getting 100 DMs a day.
Or you can go to my X. I put every ballot up that we get, and we've got somebody on TikTok doing it for us. So if you can't find a ballot, reach out to me on X. I got a lot of DMs. I want to take that off Sloan's plate. So please, just if you're on X, yeah.
Oh my God. So this is an important race. This is going to be on everyone's ballot, and we've got Michael Byrne coming on next. This is wherever you are in the state. This is important, and let me tell you what the appellate court judge does. So there's district court judges. You may think of them as traffic, cyber stalking when people take out BS charges.
Defamation.
A couple of cyber stalking charges have actually made their way to the appellate court, but certain, certain things, and then, superior court. So this also, and that's district court is I think it's a 2 or 4 year stint. Superior court is 8 years. Appeals is 8 years. So who you vote for really matters. But when we get to constitutional issues, it's handled at the appellate court because laws are made. Okay, that's a big, think of it as a big net as a law. They get chiseled away at the district court, superior court, and really at the appeals and state Supreme Court level, so that you've got specific applications of the law, right? The law is only good when it's tested in a courtroom, I think. How am I doing, Michael? Am I pretty fair on with that one?
I'm enjoying every minute of it.
Okay. Welcome.
So good to see you again. I saw you in Lee County when you came to visit, and it's good to see you again. I do not know much about your background. Why don't you tell us your background? Like, where are you from? How did you get into law? Where'd you go to school? Because everybody cares if you're a deacon or wherever you went.
Sure. Well, I grew up basically on Falls Lake between Raleigh and Wake Forest. We moved to North Carolina in 1972. My father, who was a personnel administrator, was actually hired by the Holshouser administration, which was the first Republican governor since Reconstruction, to sort of professionalize our state personnel system. And he worked for what is now DHHS for 33 years. Okay. And my mother was a public school teacher in Wake County.
Wow.
I went to, and then later on, she taught at a private school in Raleigh. I think she taught for a total of 50 years. Fortunately, both of them are still with us. My dad is 90, and he was photographed the other day putting out one of my campaign signs, which I think is pretty cool.
That is cool.
And I went to Millbrook High School in Raleigh. I went to undergrad at North Carolina State. While I was at North Carolina State, I edited the first student conservative newspaper there ever. I interned for the John Locke Foundation. And between college and law school, I worked in DC for L. Brent Bozell at the Media Research Center fighting liberal media bias. And yeah, that was a fun job. You know, we didn't win, obviously, but we were in the fight. So went to law school at Campbell. And when I graduated, I looked around at some of the job offers that were out there and said, I believe I can make more money as an entrepreneur. So I opened my own law firm, and I had it for 25 years. Did a sort of general practice for quite a number of years, did many trials, some appeals. Right around 2008, though, I restricted my practice to represent state employees and police, because that was an area in which I developed some expertise. And you know, it's funny, you know, when you're a young lawyer or young anything, you want to act like you know everything. When you get older, you're like, I'm just going to focus on a few things and try to be good at that. So in the process of that, I did more than 20 cases in the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court, mostly representing law enforcement and state employees. And then in 2020, I became my present job, which is an administrative law judge.
What does an administrative law judge do?
That's a good question. So we were created in 1985 to provide due process and fairness to disputes between state agencies and everybody else. We hear about 100 different kinds of cases. They can be as complex as certificate of need, which is something that I do, $145 million hospital, or it could be as simple as a quick pass turnpike appeal. And that's what's kind of neat about the job, is you get to do so many things. Obviously, with my background in state personnel actions, I did 272 cases in OAH as a lawyer before becoming a judge there, which I'm told is a record. And because of that background in personnel, I'm assigned to all our state personnel cases by default. So, but we basically ensure that each side in an agency versus anyone else dispute gets a fair, professional hearing, and then my decisions are appealed either directly to the Court of Appeals or to Superior Court in some areas. We also hear occupational licensing cases. So, for example, law enforcement training standards, sheriff standards, and those decisions, we write a decision and the agency does the final decision, which can then itself be appealed. So we are basically dedicated to due process. Our founding statute refers to us specifically as independent administrative law judges, and that's something that I take and my colleagues take very, very seriously.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and I think this is going to put a little bit more meat on the bone for our audience in terms of what you do. So
Sure.
Big on the First Amendment here. I mean, literally, my job is words, and it can get very interesting very quickly, as you know. I mean, the First Amendment is a big issue. But obviously, it's designed to prevent the government from picking winners and losers in a public debate. So in your view, how aggressively should state courts police viewpoint discrimination by state agencies like universities, local governments, et cetera?
Well, unfortunately, as a judicial candidate, I can't say I'm going to rule on a certain thing or whatever. And, noting, of course, the critical importance of the First Amendment, as a state administrative law judge and as someone who's becoming, hopefully, a court of appeals judge, I think more of Article 1, Section 14 of our Bill of Rights, which is our version in North Carolina of the First Amendment. We have a very strong liberty protecting Constitution. And I am a free speech, as close to a free speech absolutist as you can find when it comes to the government. One of my favorite provisions in our state constitution is Article 1, Section 35. And what it says is a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is absolutely necessary to secure the blessings of liberty. And what that translates to is remember why you're here. And it's a just direct instruction to judges like me, and frankly, to y'all as citizens, to remember what the founders told us to do. And my ancestors, and perhaps so did yours, fought on places like Moores Creek Bridge and Guilford Courthouse and Kings Mountain to get us those liberties, to say, no, King George, you can't tell us who our judges are going to be. No, King George, you can't tell us who to speak. No, King George, we are free, independent people. So every time I look at a case that involves our state constitution, I keep that in mind. So I hope that helps give you an idea of my philosophy on that.
It very much does. And I think we're going to shift to an unsavory sort of thing. And candidates are, I mean, free speech is never, it's not unsavory to us, but our free speech is unsavory to certain listeners if they don't have taste or a sense of humor. But, you know, I've been keeping up with your race, and I've been keeping up with, if you will, some tomfoolery from your opponent. And one thing I picked up on, you know, is, and I don't think you guys can see this, but I just want to put it up here to cite my work. Your opponent has spent $1,401 from his campaign funds on clothing. Now, I'm not going to weigh in on whether or not it's legal. I've run campaigns before. I've run several campaigns before. We've never expensed clothing. So what's the deal with that?
So I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen that. I will say that I bought this sport coat myself. I buy my suits.
Hello. Yeah.
I can't say I bought all my ties. Like, my wife generally buys those for me, like when she's on overseas trips. Yeah, she buys ones that are much nicer than mine. When I pick one out, she kind of looks at it and goes, you know, so I guess.
But the donor intent, because when you're out there saying, I mean, you know, that it's it's a trusting situation. If you're saying, listen, here's what I want to do, here's what I'm running for. I don't think in a donor's mind they have, and I'm going to go to Belk's and Suit Warehouse.
Yeah, that is a choice. It's not it's not a choice that I would make, but I will leave his actions up to him. I think one of the problems in this race has been that from the beginning, if you follow this race, Sloan, you've seen this. I've tried to maintain a resolutely positive campaign.
You have.
Focusing solely on my qualifications and experience. Now, discussing my qualifications and experience versus my opponents, I think that's fair game.
Sure.
But, you know, he has chosen, and his supporters have chosen, quite frankly, to engage in pretty overt negative campaigning using methods such as anonymous Facebook trolls, posts by the candidate himself. And I just simply don't believe in that.
Well, let's just cut to the chase then, because
Yes,
one of the biggest fear, uncertainty, and doubt things that he has portrayed about you is that you've given donations to Democrats. And I mean, I think our president's done that. I mean, I've done it. I gave to a judge, actually, a Democrat judge. But let's talk about tell us your story.
To Republicans too.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
Way more money to Republicans.
Isn't that called? If you, and I'm no lawyer, but if you, I've used plenty of them. If you're taking a body of evidence to cite your work, right, and you're removing exculpatory evidence, isn't that obstruction of justice?
Well, it's more. So let's maybe start at the beginning. If I had been told that my opponent gave to Democrats, my answer, quite simply and clearly, would be, so what?
That's what
He has a First Amendment right to give to whoever he wants. And as lawyers, that's going to generally be our default answer. It's like, okay, so and you know, the fact is, I was an appellate litigator, as I mentioned. I did more than 20 plus cases there. I knew most or all the judges, and I donated to judges who I liked. Some of them asked, some of them didn't ask. They were Democrats and Republicans. all but 1 year, they were nonpartisan elections. Now, these weren't, shakedowns, but it was, if somebody call you up and say, can you help me out? I'd say, sure. I mean, these were people on
because that's what happened to me. I was invited to a dinner and I showed up and it was a donation. Well, damn if it didn't go to a Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly. And there are two other categories. I want to be fully transparent about this. My single largest judicial donation was to a Wake County judge who's a Democrat, extremely conservative, and he was so hard on criminal defendants that the criminal defense bar, which I was never a part of, I didn't do criminal cases. I tried to represent the good guys. Tried to recruit a stooge candidate to run against him and get him off the bench. Well, that made me mad. So I gave him a bunch of money, and he duly crushed the stooge at the election. So they're local judges who I liked, and we never sat around walking in the courtroom and say, is Judge X a Democrat or Republican on the bench? We just didn't do that. There were nonpartisan elections. And then the final one, the one that they really hammer me on, is when Governor McCrory was in office, and I voted for Governor McCrory every time, he passed or tried to pass, in my mind, some extremely ill-advised legislation that would have turned my clients, our state employees and law enforcement officers, into basically political appointees. It actually passed the House, and it would have taken their cases away from OAH, where I'm now a judge. It would have put hearing officers in charge, no rules of evidence, no right to an attorney, no rules of ethics, basically nothing. Now, let's keep in mind, my father was fired by the Hunt administration because he told them what the law was in a certain subject. Okay?
Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
I think
it's like
you've
a start.
explained yourself.
Yeah, I sued Governor Hunt, and I got my father's job back. So that's why I care about this.
I love this story.
So, and he's turning this into, I'm some kind of Democrat. His supporters going, he's a Roy Cooper plant, and you kind of have to laugh if it wasn't so serious. The ethical.
That's not what I call him, Judge. You know what I call him? You probably don't want to know what I call him, but I call him a whiny titty baby.
Oh, well, I can't do that. So,
but I can.
Michael, Dave Bolak is one of our seminal, just all stars.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And the funny thing is, look, I mean, I was a Democrat, okay, a long time ago. And
so was Jesse Helms.
Yeah, I love that man. Yeah. So I'm very suspicious. So I walked over to him. This is during the primary. And I said, look, you're a Democrat. And he went out to lunch and he explained his reason and logic. So I would say to the people that are very concerned about this, we have a lot of people on Facebook that wanted me to ask you this question. They wanted this conversation.
Sure.
That one of our, the most ass-kicking, Republicans we have is on the council. Dave Bolak. Now you're going to be handcuffed. Your job is to be boring and interpret the law. So you're not going to be able to be, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So, I'm telling the audience, we're not able to get into the flamboyant type of interviews that we're going to have coming up next with Mike. But so I'm going to have a moat for you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, ma'am.
We've been here before. I mean, some of our, what they say about also converts is they are the most stringent, and I'm a hardcore right winger, and so Dave, I think so. We've elected people before that have donated to Democrats, and might I point this out to you? We've had censures, right, from people who are seated legislators who, like 15 minutes ago, supported a left-wing Democrat with Z. Smith Reynolds. Okay, that would be, well, we'll get to that later. We've had that before. This ain't it. This is a few errant donations. We've explained it away. And I'm going to keep explaining away because there's no smoking gun.
Well, listen, I want to say one thing to you that people don't know about you. I have a cousin who worked in the Highway Patrol for many, many years. And one of the guys that works for him, you helped him save his job. And when they all called me like, who should I vote for? And I told him to vote for you. And he goes, is that the same guy? This guy was a blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, that's him. He goes, he saved my job for me one time.
Wow.
I
That's
think
what I
that
did.
speaks volumes.
And I, y'all know about my law enforcement endorsements.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
the first.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'm the first candidate in our judicial history that I know of to be endorsed by National NAPO, by NCFOP, and NCPBA. But real briefly, if I could go back to the nation one minute, what bothers me is less that my opponent made an issue out of them, was that he posted them about them on Facebook rather, and he only identified the Democratic ones.
Of course.
And that's a problem for me. And let me tell you why. This is not an election for dog catcher. Okay. This is an election to our state's second highest court. And as judges, we don't, at least I don't, ignore half the evidence in order to get to some desired result. Okay. So Byrne, a Republican, gives to Democrats is a much better story than Byrne, a Republican, gave to Democrats and Republicans, mostly in nonpartisan elections, which is kind of boring. But that's the truth. And as judges, we have to tell the truth. In fact, when you go into a courtroom in North Carolina to even be part of the playing field, you have to take an oath. And it's in General Statutes 11-11. And y'all can recite it with me. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Help me God.
So my respectful question is, by only revealing my Democratic donations and not my Republican ones that frankly exceed his own by a considerable amount, did he tell the whole truth about my donations? Well, as I say, you be the judge of that. But I'm getting back to the law enforcement. Yes, I have an absolute passion for due process, and it informs every aspect of my work. And I'm very happy that I was able to play a role in that case that you're talking about. I did a lot of them, and
People don't forget, Judge. I just want you to know.
yes, ma'am. And it's the state. That's honestly the reason, Margo, why I got so much appellate experience, because the taxpayers pay for the state's lawyers. So they would lose and they'd appeal. And at one point, I think I had 7 cases pending in the Court of Appeals at the same time. And an AG called up, we're going to appeal. I'm like, well, go ahead. I mean, what's 7 versus 8?
See you Friday.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So, but in retrospect, I'm glad that happened, because it gave me such a broad base of appellate expertise. And one of the reasons I think my opponent, y'all, is nation so hard, negative campaigning. I think you negative campaign when you can't say anything positive about yourself. And the fact is, and he admitted it on the stage in Charlotte the other night, in my opponent's entire 25-year legal career, he did exactly 1 case in the Court of Appeals. 1.
Oh, wow.
Yes, ma'am. 1.
No, we need you up there with Michael Stating. He's my buddy.
Yeah.
And April Wood.
I know.
I love April.
They all, I used to know all the judges up there well. I don't, if they came there after 2020, I know who they are. They review my work. And that incidentally is something I'm very proud of. Again, that I've been reviewed and appealed 9 straight times. And 9 times I've been unanimously affirmed. Now,
so let me say this, because a lot of people don't know. The Court of Appeals is the court that really looked at the last redistricting and made the decision on or determination on that. So having a Republican or a conservative Court of Appeals, broadly speak to that and what it means for North Carolinians, because we got to move, Judge, but we want you to get this in.
Oh, sure. I mean, I say this a lot and it sounds cocky, but it's really not meant to be. The law isn't hard. Right? In our state, the General Assembly is, by the intent of the founders, the preeminent branch of government, the direct elected representatives. Our job as judges is simply to read the Constitution and follow what is written, read the law and follow what is written. I mean, it's really not hard. And, that's how I approach every bit of this. The General Assembly is our directly elected representatives. They tell us what the law is. And I'm not, it's attributed, I think, to Hugo Black, I'm not engaged in some roving commission to, quote, do good. When I was hired by my boss, Julian Mann, he looked at me, he said one sentence, Michael, get it right. And for 6 years, I've tried to do exactly that. And I'll do exactly the same thing in the Court of Appeals if I'm lucky enough to get elected. And right now, it's looking increasingly good in this primary.
I love
Well,
that you're so. Go ahead, Sloan.
Sorry about that. How do we find you? Tell us where we can donate, where we can send people to learn more about your platform.
Sure. I've had this last name for 58 years, but it's very hard to spell. So what our website is www.mb, my initials, the number 4nc.com. We have an awesome website. My wife, Bridget, did it, just like she did our cards and our flyers and our signs. If it was me, it'd probably be a stick figure saying vote for me, but she does an awesome job. So you can go there. There's my bio. There's important cases I worked on. There's my endorsements. We know about the law enforcement ones. Grassroots North Carolina, of course, endorsed me. Y'all, which I'm very grateful for. We have incredible momentum right now of simply saying that you as North Carolinians have a choice. And I am someone who will never permit any politician, doesn't matter what party they are, to influence how I make a decision or how I rule in a case. And that is a matter of sacred trust and something I take any seriously. And any politician who did tell me how to run, well, that uncomfortable feeling would be my boot in that person's posterior, because I will not have it.
Well, thank you so much, Judge, for coming. We look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail and seeing you on the ballot in November.
Thank you all very much. And thank you for having me. Have a great evening.
You too.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye.
Man, Sloan, this is flying by.
It was a little exciting for a judge because judges are boring. So, and they should be boring. The next guest is not going to be boring because I know I'm a Twitter friend of Mike, and I really don't, know him very well, but I know he's taken on Jay Johnson, and we are going to talk about everything. Mike, hello, how are you?
Hey guys, good to see you.
How's my favorite former Gastonian?
I'm doing good. I'm in better place in Rutherford County now. So,
well, I'll listen to you, but you always have to go back and get some Tonys, because
that's how
Mike and I had connected when I always have to say, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Gastonia, North Carolina originally. And I had you asked two questions. You asked, what do you get at Tony's, and which barbecue place are over blacks? And now there's no choice in the second question.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
So,
I'm like you, Margot. I can visit those when I'm back home, both of them.
That's right.
You got a big, you're looking to take a big bite here. And so when I emailed you, this had just come to mind. I was thinking, I said this at the head of the show, that if, God forbid, things don't turn out in the midterm across the country federally, and we lose control of, power, really our firewall for us in North Carolina is at the state legislature. We're not like Virginia or Florida, where the governor has a lot of power. Thank goodness they don't. So the legislature can bring a firewall to save us. And primaries are the most important election you can possibly vote in this state.
Right. Sloan, I think you're right. And, we see that the firewall we have there, basically the federal government's done away with the 9th and 10th Amendments, states' rights issues. Unless we keep pushing back, they're going to keep taking more ground. And let's say something happens, like you said, in the midterms, and then we look at everything that's going to be pushed down our throats on renewable energy stuff, the DEI stuff, all that stuff that we've been fighting for the last, since I left in 15. Remember when I left, it was the bathroom bill we thought was the most egregious thing in the world. Now look where we are now. That was tame compared to what we're talking about now.
That's now.
And you were right.
Yeah. You don't have a strong legislature, a conservative, strong legislator. It's not, legislators can be conservative and they can be okay guys, but unless they're going to have a backbone, unless they're going to be courageous, you don't need them in today's world. If they're just going to be yes to go along to get along, and pass bills like we've been seeing lately, some of them we'll talk about hopefully in the on this podcast. But unless you have those folks that are going out there and fight for the constituents, then you don't need those folks there. They're not there because the next people who come in will influence those same people the same way, and then you'll have all these things we talked about and all the things we fear we're going to get if we don't get what we need in the midterms.
So I talked to you earlier, and one of the things you told me is that you had worked side by side with some people that we talk about often, Tom Tillis and Pat McCrory and several others. And I'd really like to hear, why do you want to go back and hang out with some of those guys?
Well, we made a difference when we were there. We fought the same people you're talking about. We fought the speaker every time, no matter who the speaker was. It seems like we were fighting him about something. We put together, and I'll mention some names here. Chris Millis is a good name, good conservative. That was in our group. Dan Bishop was in our group. We put together what Chris calls our shadow caucus. And when I was majority leader, we had 15 good conservatives that would meet in my office every week, and we go through every bill, go through the budget when it came out. We decide what we were going to support, what we weren't. In 2015, if you guys may recall, the budget went all the way to November. Remember, that was a time when we had to have a budget. We didn't have a continuing resolution, which I hate, by the way, because it doesn't force the Senate and the House to get together and work together. But we pushed back on that budget in 2015. We had a list of 10 items that we wanted to see out of that budget. And Moore at that time did not want us to do didn't want us to vote on the budget, wanted to move it on. We said no. We went all the way to November. We cut $1 billion out of the budget that year, just on stuff that shouldn't, just on giveaways, on political giveaways that should not have been there. So we did that with Tillis. We did it with Moore, and I want to go back and do it some more. I think it's the right thing to do for our constituents to save. I live in a Tier 1 county. Our folks don't need money spent on solar energy and tax and film tax credits and all the boondoggles we have out there. They want to keep more of their money, and they're struggling. Look at where energy prices are right now. Look at where property taxes are, medicine and food. I've got seniors that are really struggling, and we don't want to go spend that money all over the state for other things we don't need to be doing.
Not to mention your particular county was struck by Helene a lot,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's another struggle on top of all the struggles they already have.
Yeah. We spent I spent 4 months in the Hickory Nut Gorge working on Helene. The day we were there, the day after it happened, and I'm gonna tell you, it's devastating. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's going to take a lot of money to put that back. And so far, I don't believe. I've been an advocate for West North Carolina my whole life, especially when I was in the legislature. Unless we do something different, it's going to take a long time to get that back. The money has not gotten there. The help has not gotten there. We've had sporadic, help here and there. The Army Corps of Engineers has been great, for instance, but we've not had all these czars, if you want to call it, that were supposed to be out there helping us. We just haven't had that. They haven't helped. So unless we've had local people helping each other, we wouldn't be nowhere near where we are now. But you're right. So we need to keep that money back into the district and not give it to all these folks that don't need it. Like the green energy folks and the film folks and all those type folks.
Yeah. So your direct opponent, he's kind of all over the place, but lately he's been around California a lot.
Well, he's taken. I think he's been in 7 states since July 1st. From July 1st to 12/31, he has to report that on his campaign finance. So he's been in California. I think that's where his girlfriend lives. She's a legislator out there. At the same time, he was in California, Washington, Idaho, Texas, Louisiana, Indiana, Florida, and Washington, D.C. in the 6 months.
North Carolina.
Not here in
North Carolina, where his constituents are still suffering through Hurricane Helene.
Yeah, we had a forum Thursday night. I left the polls early to go to the forum we had. Of course, he's never showed up at anything in Rutherford County. Didn't show up at the forum. I asked the question on why do you want to run and what makes you different from your counterpart. I said, it's easy. I'll show up. If you don't show up, you don't know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, you can't run legislature to help your constituents. And I'll give you a good example. In the 6 years I was there, as you guys know, I was freshman leader the first term, freshman leader of the largest Republican class that ever came in 23. Then in the next session, I was the majority whip. Next session, I was majority leader. In that time, I ran 108 bills, and I put 44 of those bills into law. My counterpart, or my opponent, has been there 7 years, and he's put 5 bills into law, and 2 of them were local bills, as you guys know, are much easier to pass. So you got 44, and you have 5. And those 5 really didn't represent our constituents.
So, Mike, I have some specific issues I'd like your take on. We'll run through them really quickly. Mm-hmm. Closed primaries, open primaries.
Closed primaries.
Okay. And do you prefer nonpartisan elections and local elections or partisan elections?
I don't think anything should be nonpartisan. Matter of fact, I made the school board partisan because that's what was the right thing. Didn't ask my county commissioners. I just made them partisan because it's the right thing to do.
So you're hitting on some topics, especially in Western North Carolina, that are a big deal because they like to hide behind the nonpartisanship so you don't get to know. And I would just ask you personally, when you get to the legislature, because you're going to get there if I have to come down to Rutherford and start wearing Doncaster suits up and down that street. But when you get there, can you help us please move these rural communities back to partisan elections?
Oh, yes. And you know, what I did when I was there, we knew that was the only place that Democrats were hiding out in Rutherford County. We'd already taken over everything. A lot of folks don't understand that Rutherford County prior to about 2006 was all Democrat. I became chair of the local party in 6 to 10, and we put a concerted effort to go after certain seats, and we started gaining these seats. And then the last bastion they had was the nonpartisan school board. And the election after I made them partisan, it went all Republican.
Well, listen.
Yeah. I want to tell you some stats, though. When we have partisan school board races, Republicans win.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've seen that in droves. And so we've seen it all across the state, et cetera. I want to ask you this. What I have a problem with is non-fighting back. So that it seems like the Senate always does a loop-de-loop around the House, right? Mm-hmm. They're dominating. I mean, I think it's the body that gets probably the most lobbyist money, the most corporate money. Yes. And they feel like they can, do that. We saw this in the foreign doctor bill where they had an okay bill. It was a doctor compact where you could come from New York, wherever, and it would be easier to work here. And it also expanded privileges for PA. So if the argument was excess, then you have it. And then the Senate, at the very last minute, forced a provision that allows doctors to come here from any country at all. You're trained there. They don't have to take a test. So there's zero vetting on the U.S. level, period. None. They're given a license, not a provisional license, a license right away and allowed to work. They get a permanent license. It's somewhat provisional, permanent license after 4 years and zero supervision. So in other words, you've got a bill that's, I guess, pretty good, right? You can allow doctors to retire here, et cetera. And the PA extension, but you put a poison pill in it, which negates the entire bill because you've driven the wages down precipitously because you're replacing, doctors that have $230,000 in debt. You're undercutting them, and you're bringing these doctors in. I have to tell you, Mike, we just found, we knew this already, an instance of an Indian mill that cranks out diplomas. So how the hell from North Carolina, if a hospital wants to hire you, we're saying it's incumbent upon a hospital system that wants to make a lot of money for them to vet? We have no way to test these guys. So my point is this. I was told a couple of things, but I was told by one of the bill sponsors in the House, well, gosh, if we didn't put that in there, well, the Senate just wouldn't have passed the rest of the bill.
That doesn't surprise me. When you do those things, you're watering down the quality of doctors. And the people that suffer in North Carolina are the seniors from those kind of things that we do
in rural areas.
Yeah, in rural areas, and you could also say Senate Bill 266 if you're familiar with that. That was I think it was the Power Bill Reduction Act, in which they allowed Duke to take a construction work in progress, which put all the building and the financing and building of a nuclear plant onto the ratepayers. And in that bill also was what they did is they took all this power they're buying now because they tore down all these peaking coal burning plants, and now they can't. Solar energy doesn't work in the morning; it only works past 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So they have to go buy energy, and they put that on the backs of the residential customers. That's why your bill has gone up 30% in the last 4 years. This is the thing that the things that come out of the Senate and push down the throat of the House, and the House is going to have to start saying no. And we did when I was there. We had such a good group there. We just said no. We're not voting on these things. If they die, they die. I'd rather kill a bad bill than have a good bill that's slightly, that's just good slightly.
Or one that is so onerous. It's going to kill people.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And what we're talking about we're going to have oversight hearings like they're having in the House right now, where people are killed, right? And they're going to have to hold them accountable. So, that's my question to you, because I know a lot of people in the House, and they're violent legislators, et cetera. And they're not go along to get along. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of strong characters in there. So why are we getting some of this stuff still.
And we're the ones that are telling them, Mike. They didn't even know it was in there till
we're the
we
bad
told
guys.
them.
Mike, you already know we're the bad guys still.
Well, and if you'd have told them about House Bill 951, our energy prices wouldn't be up 30% So
There you go.
yeah, exactly.
I'm the bad guy. I want people to not spend their savings on their health care. That's another thing, but I digress.
Well, I think, what I saw when I was there is you got some conservative folks there. But think about and your audience may or may not know this. You may have told them this. The things that are important to a representative, or just say a legislator in general, and they're crazy stuff. It's, where do I sit on the floor? How close am I to the front? What committees do I have? How big is my office? Those are the things that tend to be important. And who controls those things? The leadership. Leadership controls the speaker predominantly. So once he makes a deal, and maybe he's trading off with the Senate, and once he makes a deal with the Senate, then it's kind of said, okay, we need to vote for these things. And if it's not said that if you don't get these niceties, but it's implied that if you don't go along. And I think that's what happens to a lot of folks, because there are a lot of good people in the House. Yeah. But you see the geese fly back in the South, and they go back in the North, and you always had that one lead goose. Well, that's the leader. That's what happens. That's what we found when I was there. If you're willing to take all those hits and all those bugs in your face like that lead goose does, then you'll have a lot of followers. They'll get behind you. But I always say there's two things missing in the legislature. Honesty is one of them, and loyalty is another. And the third one is courage. Now, those are, if you could have those things, and somebody's probably missing at least one of those things. And courage is probably the biggest thing. They just don't want to get out. But especially on energy issues. A lot of folks don't understand the energy issues because they don't get out there and look stupid because they don't understand the energy issues. They'll just vote on it.
Lobbyists are educating them, Mike. So we've got people here in Wake County that I've caught actually having a big shindig with 4 globalist type of entities, et cetera. And I'm going, this is something I would expect from a Soros-run candidate. Mm-hmm. Yet Republicans are doing it. And you're right. Simply, we don't have the mechanism by which to train legislators when they get in. So we leave them to, like you're saying, some spurious leaders who are already there, or lobbyists who would more than gladly take them under their wing and teach them about.
Give them dinner. So my question.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because it's about energy. So we're hearing a lot about these data centers, and I live in the furthest county west, right? Southwest. Mm-hmm. And we have 3 data centers in a population of 30,000 people. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Our energy bills, guess how much they've gone up? 30%. It's a big 3.
About 30%. Yep.
So I want North Carolinians to know this isn't just coming in and making it awesome for you.
Right. Well, the employment's not there. I mean, we have Facebook data center here in Rutherford County, employs about, and I may get this exactly wrong, but about 60 people. Let's say 60 to 70, 80 people.
Right. Less than 100.
They got free property taxes for, I think it was 30 years. Could be wrong about that, but I think it's about 30 years. And they came back to me when they were building the 3rd data center, wanted the state to pay, it was about $20 million to get a power line there. I told them, no, we weren't doing that. So they did it themselves. But they really don't help they really don't help the community they come into that much. If they pay property taxes, they would, but they're exempted for a long time. I'm not sure what that's doing to help. It's probably going to drive, because then you're using more energy. You got to buy more energy in the mornings because we tore down all the peaking coal burning plants. So it's just it's a supply and demand issue. It's not that hard to figure out. It's relatively easy to figure that, hey, the residential guys are the ones that are going to get screwed on this. And
what's sad is I love Trump. He's great. But this whole push the data center thing has now made people, they don't understand what it's really doing to their local economy. Like we're having to get a substation, which means some farmers are losing their land. They're not happy. The TVA won't talk to us because we buy our power from the TVA. You know how that is. They're a whole other corrupt business. But I just feel like if you go to the legislature, I hope you stop some of this.
Well, I think it's point to get the facts out there that, the energy is a supply and demand. You're only making so much every day. And when you make that up and you use it, it's gone. You're making up some more, the next hour, the next second. And when that becomes scarce, they always cut off the residential customer first. You guys may have got the same email from Duke Energy, but if you're on Duke Energy or from TVA or whoever, when it got cold, we had single digits. It said, please refrain from using energy from 4 a.m. in the morning till 10 a.m. in the evening. I don't know if you guys seen that, but I'm sure a lot of your listeners have. And the reason they do, Yeah, but the reason they did that is because they had tore down all these peaking plants, and solar doesn't come online until 10 a.m. And so we were left, the residential folks were left holding the bag, trying to cut
Crazy.
energy, keep from having blackouts and brownouts,
Sounds
and then
like
drive.
yeah, to me.
Yeah, didn't drive an energy price. So, by the way, I got a mailer in the mail today of my opponent, and this is from. I know you can't see this, but this is from the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association Leadership Forum, endorsing my opponent for clean energy. Solar panels.
It's not clean energy.
No,
It's
no.
dirty politic energy.
And it takes up all our farmland. Originally the clean energy or the solar panels were supposed to put on marginal property, not farm property. We have used to be a peach farm down the road from me that's now covered with these things. And now
That's
they're putting
horrible.
batteries on them, which is driving the price up even more. Duke is asking for another, last I looked, a 16% rate increase because of Senate Bill 266. We got 30% because of House Bill 951. That if you look at that, it was almost a unanimous vote. Both of those were unanimous vote on the House floor, which is amazing to me.
Yeah, because they forget that there's people past Rutherfordton.
Yes, yep. Well,
And we
Pat
might-
Charlotte, really, Margot.
Can I ask you? Okay, so 266, that's the Senate. That's SB.
Yes, ma'am. Then
Okay.
260,
And then HB 961, right?
951.
951. We're
Yes.
we're going
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, you'll like those.
Oh, big
All right.
fun.
So, Mike, where can people find you? What's your platform? What's your message? What's your big message?
Well, you find me at Mike Hagar 4NC, the number 4NC.com. Certainly find me on Facebook at that same one. Go to my personal Facebook, Mike Hagar. I usually post on there every day. I post stuff like this mailer I got in the mail today. Big issues for me. I have to tell the story real quick, if you don't mind. My mother is 86. I got out of legislature in 2016. You guys may know that my dad had a stroke. So we got out to take care of him. Mom couldn't take care of him. He was a big guy and he was wheelchair bound. So I left in 2016 to do that. And we did that for up until he died about 3 years ago. So mom's in a good situation. She's still alive, but I watch her at 86 years old and she struggles, of course, to pay her bills. Just because she forgets them. She struggles to pay her taxes again because she forgets them. And so I look at her and wonder how many people out there are like her that are, in their 70s or 80s and even on the 90s that struggle to make sure their bills are paid, make sure life is, good for them. The one that, and you guys may know, we have a Homestead Act in North Carolina, homestead exemption, which allows people like that to exempt 50% of their property taxes. I want to move that to 100%. So seniors like that doesn't have to worry about it. You got to be 65 plus, and you got to be on really a fixed income about $38,000 a year. Is really passionate about this, and exempt these vulnerable seniors from property taxes. And guys know what property taxes have happened in the last 5 or 10 years. I've got a town in Rutherford County called Forest City that raised their taxes 106% in one vote of their council.
Then
they did a reevaluation and didn't make it revenue neutral and hit them on another 30%. So they got almost 140% in 6 months taxes raised. Well, there's people struggling on that.
Yeah. People are going to lose their homes. With Brian Echevarria is going to be a great warrior with you.
Yeah, we're sending. I've already done the calculation for what, and this is the part of it. My opponent's against this because he thinks the counties are not going to get the money they deserve from these vulnerable seniors and pass that and raise taxes on somebody else. But it's only 1%. It's a 0.8 to 1.2% on every county that I have in my district. That's all it's going to take to help these vulnerable seniors. So it's a good thing to do. It does what we know to do, is to lower taxes. And so I had to start, people ask me, well, how do they make that up? Well, they make that up by getting more efficient. They don't make it up by
cutting waste, fraud, waste, abuse.
Yeah, not raising any other taxes, not putting taxes on somebody else, but just being more frugal with people's money. And it forces them to do that. So I think it's a good conservative thing. Second thing I'm working on is what we just talked about, is repealing House Bill 951 and Senate Bill 266 because they've raised prices. Now, we're going to be able to get prices down where they were? No, but we can work on that. They're not going to rise anymore. So we'll repeal that bill. So those are the two biggest things I'm working on. And of course,
I love that you care about seniors like that, because I feel like they're the forgotten ones right now between the property taxes issue. They really are not being courted by the government in the state legislature specifically. And yet they are the ones who put forth the fruit for us to have that state legislature the way it is.
Yeah. They're the ones that've been here through every bad turn down that America's had. They're the ones here. And if you look at the history, I came to Rutherford County in '94 working for Duke Energy. I grew up in Gaston County. And if you guys remember '94, that's the year that NAFTA passed and North American Free Trade Agreement. In '98, it really hammered our county. We were all textiles, all furniture, and all, where all that went. And so it really, I mean, these people were just just normal Americans trying to live the American dream with a couple kids, with a small house, nice house in Rutherford County. And then, all they want to do is send their kids to college and have their kids do better off than them. But now they get laid off because something Washington did. And some of them even lost their 401k or their retirement. You had 50-year-old men and women or 55-year-old men, in some cases 60-year-old men and women that had to go find another job and wonder how they were going to retire, all because of something Washington did. And I remember looking around then. I had a job at Duke Energy at the lower part of the county as a power plant we were working at. And I looked around, nobody cared. Nobody from Raleigh cared. Nobody from Washington cared. Nobody was helping us. So I became part of the party then and started working. Never had been politically active before that. If you fast forward to 2010, you guys know the housing crisis hit. Again, we were just getting on our feet and it just devastated us. And so we had almost 18.6% unemployment in Rutherford County.
Oh, wow.
We had businesses closing. And again, I looked around and you guys, nobody cared again. Nobody from Washington, nobody from Raleigh. And it hit our old elderly, probably our seniors more than anybody, and the folks that are getting ready to retire. So now we sit here in 2024, 2025, and we have this issue with property taxes being raised, doubling, and sometimes almost 150%. We had to shut down 2 schools because we just didn't have the money to fund them. One was a community school, that was an elementary school in the community. Now those 5 and 6 and 7 year olds are being bused an hour and a half.
Wow.
The county is not doing well, and this whole area is not doing well because, again, decisions made by politicians. And that's kind of why I stepped in. I stepped in to say, hey, I've got to do something. I remember every time I thought about, who's going to do something about NAFTA? And so I joined the party. And I thought, well, who's going to do something about the housing crisis? I ran for office. Now I'm back where I started again. Who's going to do something to help us out again? And nobody's there. And Margaret, West North Carolina's been hammered.
Yeah, well, I have to say this because I rolled my eyes. For those of you that don't know that I'm a proud North Carolinian. I bought all my clothes in corporate America from Rutherford and from a business called Doncaster. And I have begged Mike Hagar to get that business back up and running. And if he could do that, we would have something big because they're Gucci. Yeah.
I'm really frustrated with the fact that the legislature passes some of these bills, and then they go back home and defend them, and they don't address the hurt that they put on their constituents. And so to me,
about Western North Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about, the things that my opponent's been involved in. It's all about living the life of a legislator. It's all about traveling. It's all about going to bourbon tours. Yeah, bourbon tours and Uncle Jesse's honky tonk. And I'll give you a good example of this. There's 3 instances here in the last year or so where we did river cleanups in Chimney Rock and Lake Lure. Again, if you guys come, I'd love to take you there. It looks rough, but it looks a lot better. So we still got a lot of debris coming down the river. So I was at those river cleanups and the 3 times. My opponent was nowhere to be found. He was at a fundraiser for Chuck Edwards. He was at a golf tournament one other time. And he was, if you see one of my mailers, he was having a good time at Uncle Jesse's honky tonk in Raleigh. While we were cleaning out, I'm never going to ask anybody to vote for me if they don't understand how invested in the community I am. I'm a volunteer fireman in my fire department. I'm on the Habitat. We work on Habitat houses, work on United Way, work for our local schools, try to help them out. So I'm never going to vote for anybody that isn't invested in their community.
It means a lot. Yeah,
yes.
You're a doer, and we need doers and not talkers.
Right.
And we need fighters.
Right.
We have to have fighters. We have to have pushback. We cannot have everything going hunky-dory in the house, etc. And then all of a sudden they have to swallow a poison pill to pass a bill, and it just upends everything. At least that's the way I see it.
So you got to have people that don't owe anybody anything down there. I don't care where my office is. I don't care where my seat is on the floor. I don't care. I'm gonna run bills that are good for our constituents, whether leadership likes it or not.
Well, Mike, we really do appreciate you coming on. I'm fighting for you because I just found out Jake went to a Chuck Edwards fundraiser. That hurts my
What phone call we're about to have when we get off this show. because Chuck
Yeah.
Edwards, it triggers Margot like a clockwork orange.
Let me kind of tell you just a real quick story, 30 seconds, real quick. The
Yeah,
second,
that'd
the third time, I think it was Halloween, I was working with the Corps of Engineers in a small tributary, well, small, pretty good sized tributary to the Broad River. But I don't know, Margaret, if you and I talked about that. I was just, I think 10 days out of kidney surgery. I had to take out part of my kidney, but they needed me down there. Of course, my doctor didn't like I was down there, but they needed me down there to work and help them figure out where to go in the creek. I wasn't working, I was just directing at the same time that he was in Raleigh doing his thing. And that frustrates me when stuff like that happens and you're not here for your people. You don't deserve to be a representative, in my opinion, if you're not willing to be here during the bad times too.
Amen.
So I'll leave you guys with that.
Mike, we really appreciate you. I'm looking forward to getting to know you even more, but I already know that you're a good guy because Gastonia doesn't make bad ones.
Well, thank you guys. I've always admired what y'all do.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank
All
you.
right. So primaries are important. I'm telling you, we talked about that firewall. First of all, we talked about two things with him. First, do no harm. So that's something that the Senate has really forced on the House and creating that firewall to make sure that, heaven forbid, even if the Trump administration may get something wrong, I don't know. We've got the state protecting us because you say, and you're right, elections are local. Start local.
They are local, and we really need some fire breathers that are not afraid to say no. No is the magic word. Or hold up, let's review that. And I feel like we talked to some candidates today.
Two tonight. Sherry Lynn.
Three, but I really feel like several of them have said, look, I'm here to hold the line.
Yeah. Last word. Don Brown's campaign is looking really good. I'm talking to people all over who are on the ground in Charlotte, who are on the ground, places that you would maybe think would go for a milquetoast candidate. They're fired up for Don. So I'm hearing reports from everywhere that Don Brown's another name that everybody in the state can vote for. Don Brown for Senate is doing well. Poll just came out. I want to leave you this. A poll came out. It was published 2 days ago in the Raleigh-Durham paper that when you look at Whatley's chances to beat Cooper and Don Brown's, they're almost identical. The electability there.
I'm proud of him. Last night, Sloan and I did a space on X. Don Brown was there. Congressman Brad Knott was there. Commissioner, Eric Stevenson, running for county commissioner in Harnett County, was there. And I was just really proud of Don. He held his own. People were asking questions about different things, and he held his own. So it would be a monumental lift to take at that spot from someone who qualified someone. Right. Absolutely.
So, all right, guys. Well, have a good evening. See you Tuesday. And thank you for sticking with us on a Sunday. Important stuff happening. I know. See you Tuesday.
All right. Take care.
That's a wrap on today's NC Political Tea. We hope you're leaving sharper, spicier, and ready to take on the political craziness in the Tar Heel State. If you loved what you heard, or even if it made you mad, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this show with your friends, family, and that one coworker who just needs the truth. Follow us on social media to stay in the loop and get your daily dose of conservative fire. And remember, here in North Carolina, the grassroots grows stronger when we stand together. Until next time, keep the faith, keep up the fight, and don't let the left water down your tea. This is NC Political Tea, where we spill it like it is.